This program is brought to you by the Kentucky Small Business Development Center in Louisville. We provide the professional expertise, tools, and information necessary to help you make sound business decisions. Thank you to the U.S. Small Business Administration for co-sponsoring our program and to our host organization, the University of Kentucky. Contact us at 502-625-0123 to get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this version of Toolkit Tuesday. Very glad to have you all here on board. I am Ann Shadle, and I'm a business coach with the Louisville Small Business Development Center. And I'm going to tell you just briefly kind of who we are and what we do here. Give me just a second. So, all right. So I'm a business coach with the Louisville Small Business Development Center. And the Small Business Development Center is a program that is funded through the Small Business Administration, like our video there just said. So we are offering a coaching service for small businesses around the state. We have centers in Louisville, and then we serve all 120 counties around the state. So yeah, we offer services primarily for startup phase, and then funding and growth phase for small businesses. So in addition to working as a coach with the center, I have also owned and run businesses for the last 15 years or so in the city of Louisville. And my particular area of expertise in those businesses has been HR, marketing, finances, operations, events, kind of the business side of those things. So you'll hear a little bit more about one of my businesses later on as I use it as a case study for this particular tool. But the tool that I've created here is something that I saw a need for as I met with many clients, and then also saw the applicability in my own business as something to create some planning and intentionality around social media posting. So not rocket science, but just how can you be more intentional with your marketing messages is kind of what the goal is of this tool. So our vision for today here is I'm going to give kind of an overview of why I think it's valuable and where it can be helpful in your businesses. Then I will go into the tool itself and walk you through kind of how to use it, and then finish with a case study where I really kind of dive into exactly how it's worked in this one particular business, and then have some time for questions and answers at the end if you all have any of those. And my contact information will be on the last slide, but if anybody is interested in receiving this, it's a spreadsheet, it's an Excel document. All you need to do is send me an email after the presentation today, and I'll send it to you. And also happy to set up a one-on-one session if you do need some assistance working through how to apply it to your own particular business. So that's kind of an overview of what we're going to do here today. So an issue that I've seen as I meet with clients, is this question of kind of the nebulousness of marketing. So particularly for businesses who are in startup phase, it can be really challenging to build a whole new brand from nothing. So a part of it does to some degree seem like magic. Like, how do you get to, where this one example here has 11,000 followers, and Gravely Brewing has just been around for 4 years. So how do you do that? How do you get there? What's the sweet spot with how much you post? What kind of things you post? How do you get engagement? And then how do you turn all of that into sales, right? That's obviously the whole goal with this. So some of the specific problems as far as breaking down, how do you take marketing and make it successful? The particular barriers that I've seen as I've met with clients is issues of consistency. So business owners not posting enough messages, or forgetting to do it, or doing it on kind of an infrequent schedule so that they're not staying top of mind with their customers. So that's one piece that I think this tool can help with. The second piece is when you do post something, what happens if you don't get engagement from your followers? So there's an element of analysis of the messages themselves that you've already put out, and then continual analysis of what's working, but then also making sure that you're being broad enough as you look at the kinds of stories and messages that you're sharing from your social media. And then the third piece there, and this is a really big one, is this issue of time, of how much time it does take to post that much, because it's not just the actual act of putting a picture onto a social media platform. It's creating a message that that you think is going to resonate, taking the pictures, curating the language around it, researching what are hashtags that will help get people into your page, all of that. So, in addition to this element of how much time it takes, one thing that I've seen is that as businesses grow, it's often something that initially the business owner does themselves, and then they're also wearing a lot of other hats to run various elements of the business. So as they continue to grow, this can be something that you can sort of chunk off, is what I say, and then delegate that to another person. But many people fear, if I pass that on to somebody else, how can I ensure that there's a consistent voice with those messages as somebody else is doing the posting? So that's a real challenge, and one that I think that this particular tool is really effective at creating a bridge between you, the business owner, and potentially somebody else who can do this on your behalf or with you. So I'll talk specifically about how that works as we kind of dive into it. So yes, let's get into, and this is one of the sexier names for spreadsheets that I've come up with, the social media content generator and planner. So it really kind of says it all. But this is just a quick picture of what it looks like. It's sort of the final piece of it. So it's just a spreadsheet. I'm going to now just kind of pull up the spreadsheet itself because it's easier to work with it in live form here on Excel. So I'll make this a little bigger so it's easier to see. So I do have an instructions tab, which kind of goes through a quick overview of what I'm going to do now. So know that that's there if you're looking at this later on and forget, what you're supposed to do in what step. So this first portion is essentially doing some kind of historical analysis of posts and messages that have already been sent out. So if you are a brand new business and you don't have any messages that you've already posted because you're starting from scratch, then my suggestion would be to do a competitive analysis of, pick your top 3 competitors. And also, when you do that, don't limit it to just your city's geographic area. If there's a similar kind of business, even in another city, look at them, because there's a lot that you can learn from the kinds of messages they're posting, particularly if you find people who do have a good following and have a lot of engagement with their messages. Look at those as far as things to learn. I also say for existing businesses, not a bad idea to do that as well, because I'm sure that you can get some ideas from looking at your other competitors. So the first thing I say to start with is this top box here. So describe who you are as a business and what your brand is made of, because I think it's important to frame everything with clear, concise language around what is your brand, what is your unique value proposition, and what differentiates you from the competitors. So again, specific words here, but to be brevity is your friend as you're describing your brand. So have everything kind of come from that core essence. So then the second portion here is to look back at your previous posts and see which types of posts get the most likes. So I would also say likes and then also views in this as well. So this is where you're looking back across platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, if you have that, Snapchat, if you have that, really look back and try to get a sense of where is the activity, because what you're trying to do is to understand, okay, there are different categories of messages that you can put out, which we go into more in the next tab, but understand which categories of messages get the most response from your customers. And then the second piece here is to look back and see which types of posts got the most written comments. I think there's a difference in whether they just give something a thumbs up or view it versus feeling compelled to actually write a comment on the post itself. So I think there's information that you can learn by looking at that particular element of it and comparing one to the other, what's getting likes versus comments.
And
Yes.
Are you trying to show your screen at this point? Because we're not seeing it if you are.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Thanks, Janet. Okay. So jumping back here, this is just kind of the simple spreadsheet, and starting that first section there, who you are, and then the post. Yeah. So just kind of going through here. Okay. So then the third section here on this kind of analysis portion of things is looking at the places where you have posted messages about your business and being comprehensive as you're looking through this. So, and in addition to the different social platforms, I also think it's important to think about your website. If you have blog posts that you put on your website, or if you have a separate kind of blogging site, and then if you also do an e-blast newsletter. So really any place, and I may have missed stuff, so make sure that you're comprehensive as you think through what are all the different places that you're posting messages. Because you'll use that as far as when you're planning to put things on different places. So that's kind of the first section of this, is just sort of looking at what's worked in the past, and then you use that information to inform how you plan going forward. So this second page here is really kind of I think it's sort of the guts of it, because it's breaking down the types of content or messages that you're putting out and looking at them from different categories. So the different categories, I've got, I'll kind of scroll down here so you know what you're looking for. Kind of what we're going to do is I've got 7 or 8 different categories that you fill in here on this first column. And then from there, and I'll go into those in a second, then from there, you're going to decide how many times per month you want to make a post in each of that category, in each category. Then you choose which day of the week you'll post about that topic, and then you identify the different platform or media outlet where you want to post that message. So, and I think it'll be helpful once I get into sort of the case study later on, as far as some of the specific types of categories of content here. But so the first one is, what people or personalities make up this business, and what is the emotion behind the business? I think it's really important to use that to your benefit, because people are interested to know what is your own personal story. So, you're a brand for the product or service that you're selling, but then you're also the business owner behind it. Now some brands really are kind of based on the person themselves, who is the owner, but it's also often that is sort of a separate entity. The brand lives separate from the people who have built it. And so I think it's really important to share those stories as far as what made you create the business, what's your passion, what was the inspiration with it. So making sure that you highlight that. So underneath of here, what I would do is, so let's say you have a business that has 2 owners. Let's call them Bob and Sally, right? So I would write their 2 names down there. And then if there's some other element, say it's like maybe your mission that you have for the business. So it's selling t-shirts, but it's selling t-shirts and donating a percentage of the profits to local nonprofits, and that you change those nonprofits every quarter. So, here I would say nonprofit support, as far as this is kind of the mission, personalities, emotion behind the business, right? So essentially it's like you're taking that category and then you're writing sort of smaller subcategories of information. So this isn't the specific posts that you'll make within each of those. That will come on the third tab where you make the actual calendar. This is just generating those categories and subcategories of types of messages. So then going down here to the second category. So what makes for appealing, sexy, exciting, interesting pictures or videos? I really need to add videos into that. So this is where, if you're a food business, obviously food, drinks, the environment. If you're a retail business, pictures of a space, pictures of particular items, pictures of people purchasing the items, wearing the items that you have. So thinking of, again, sort of different subcategories within that. Then the next category, general category of types of messages, news and updates. So anything here, whether it's a special that you do on a one-off basis, or it's something you do every week or every month, if you have new products, so just news and updates as a category. Then partners in the community. This is another sort of broad category of messaging. And this is, I often suggest to clients, if you're trying to build a brand on social media, think of the good neighbor policy. So don't just post about yourself, reshare other people's posts, comment on other people's posts in a sort of selfless way, right? And so this kind of, I think, vibes with that theory that you want to be promoting other organizations in your community while also promoting your brand. So in the case of this, this t-shirt company, they could do posts about the different nonprofits they're supporting each quarter, where it's, hey, did you know about Dare to Care? It's a food bank that collects food and shares it with different, shelters around the community. So that you're tagging them, you're making their own posts about them. So this is something that I think can help you get a wider reach as well, because you're tagging other people, and then makes them want to tag you back or share your post back. Then this next section is information and advice from the expert or helpful tips. So if you are in a service-based business, so let's say you have a cleaning service that you're trying to promote, if you have particular tips on how to get out this turkey stain on your carpet, with some kind of interesting solution, share something like that. The idea of giving not necessarily proprietary information, right? Because you want to get people to pay for that, but something that is like a little tidbit that they'll find valuable and makes them want to keep coming back, and like kind of draws them in because you're sharing relevant information, and then you make it so that they have to pay to get the deeper information, the deeper content. But there's also, so that's sort of like looking at it from a service business. From a product business, if you're a food-based business, so you could be sharing recipes or how to make a cocktail. If it's a clothing store, here's some fashion tips, how to put together a fun outfit for the fall. There's different angles, but really the idea of promoting yourself as the expert in that particular subject area will help to grow the brand. And if you're sharing relevant information for folks, and people will follow because that information is valuable to them. So that's another category to think about. Then this last one here is question and answer posts or surveys or giveaways. So this one I think is really good for encouraging that written engagement. So the idea with this is like it can be a fun kind of guessing game, right? So I know a business who sold a lot of this one particular dish, and so they said, guess how many servings of this dish we go through in a week, right? And it was a dish that was really popular, and all these people, wrote all these different answers to it, and it was like whoever gets closest gets, that dish for free for a week or something, or just one free order of that dish. So you sort of pair that question and answer post with a giveaway. There's a retail shop in town that I would see consistently posting on their Instagram. If you come into the shop today and say the word jolly to whoever's behind the counter, you get 15% off of your next purchase, or whatever, elf on a shelf or something goofy, right? Something that was often like holiday related. But I think that's an interesting, like sort of even more like actually pushing you to get those sales techniques, and it makes it easier to obviously to track who's seeing what, who's paying attention, because they're actually coming into your shop. So I think that's a really interesting way to sort of take this and put it into real life as well. But that, the surveys thing. So what are your, top 3 fall outfits, back to the retail business? So just that kind of thing really encourages engagement. And then the last 2 is just, I kind of made it so that you could add other categories if there's anything that I missed. But this is pretty broad as far as the different kinds of posts that you're making, regardless, like I said, of a product or a service business. So first, you're going to make those subcategories within that, and then you'll go over here, and then now we're going to get into a little more of the guts of planning out how often and what days of the week you'll be making those posts. So kind of taking a quick pause of some of the semantics of this. So the value of doing this with another person who you're trying to pass this off to as the business owner, this is where you can make it so that you really trust that they're going to be able to continue in the same voice that you've had, because you can work on creating this document together, right? So maybe you as the business owner make those subcategories, and then when you go to make the posts within them, then that's a combined project where you say, what do you think you'd like to post about within this idea of this new product that we're going to be putting out next week, or what are some exciting pictures that you think we could take of the space, you know, and get their feedback. But essentially you plan it all together and then you do it each month at a time. And that way, you know what's going to be posted because you worked on creating the content together. So this I would think would be a combined project between the business owner and then the new person who is going to come in and be working on making the posts and taking the pictures and stuff. So here on the decide how many times per month you want to make a post in each category. So this is where, you know, if you want to do, you really just, and we'll get into it a little bit deeper, but, you know, it's like if you want to do people or personalities 2 times a month, so you would say that, and then you want to do it on the first and third Wednesday of the month. And then down here, a sexy pictures, you want to do this once a week and you want to do it every Friday. So you'd write that in there, news and updates. That may just be as it happens, or if you do have a consistent item that you have a new product release every 2 weeks or something, you know, you can put that out as well then. You know, put that into the planner if there's consistency with when those new products come out. Partners in the community, maybe that's once or twice a month. You know, so you get where we're going with this, which is that, you know, by the time you complete this, you have essentially where you go over here to the content calendar, and you can say, okay, we have something almost every day of the week that we're doing, right? So you would fill in those subcategories. You fill in the main categories, so people, personalities, news and updates, appealing pictures, so on and so forth, and you would write out the category in here. So if you wanted to do personalities on the first and third Monday of the month, you would write that in. Then if you wanted to do appealing pictures every Friday, right, you put that there. And then same thing here, right? So on and so forth. So you would fill in all those categories first based on the days and the frequency that you had just chosen on the previous tab. And then from there, then you go underneath of each of those categories. And now you're going to share, now you're going to plan those specific posts and messages within each of those categories. And then under there, under media outlets, then you'll write, okay, I'm going to put this on Facebook and Instagram. Many of these things you will put on all of your platforms, but I also encourage, as you're doing that analysis, understand if there are certain kinds of messages that really resonate with your Facebook audience, but you don't get much interaction on your Twitter page. Just put them on Facebook, but then look at what kinds of content does really work to engage your Twitter audience and tailor it if you do have 2 different audiences on those platforms. I've definitely seen things over the years with my businesses where I get a lot of interaction on Instagram and then I don't get a lot of interaction on Facebook, but then there's other kinds of posts that I'll make on Facebook that do get a ton of play, and that it just doesn't even work to put it on Instagram because it's sharing a newspaper article, and that doesn't make sense to do on Instagram, right? So really, again, thinking of what makes sense to do what where in the spaces where that is appropriate, and then in other cases it's not necessarily. You would just post it kind of across platform. So so the idea is that you would finish this and you have a whole upcoming month worth of posts nearly every day of the week, or however often you feel comfortable doing it, you think is necessary to do it. So that then my little yellow tab down here, my yellow line, is what are the dates planned to take pictures and videos ahead of time so they're ready to post throughout the month. So the idea with this is that you can go in and plan this stuff, give yourself a couple hours to go in and take pictures of all of these different things that you wanted to take pictures of. And then, boom, all you have to do is the day of, in some of these things, you can even post ahead of time and just save it to push out on whatever specific day you wanted. But, and I know there are other tools out there. There's other ways that you can kind of organize yourself. This is just something that, that I put together thinking, well, I just want to have something that's like easy to use and simple, and I can share with clients. It's not too complicated. But again, it's just about sort of making the time to dive into it and be intentional with the planning. Because if you spend the time on the planning, then the actual act of doing it is really easy because you've already come up with everything ahead of time. I also think that as you're generating ideas and messages like this, it's it's hard to do that every day when you're doing so many different things. So if you can, give yourself that sort of hour or two of a planning time, go to a coffee shop, get outside of the business, really get yourself in sort of that creative headspace, that will contribute to your ability to think, sort of thoughtfully and intentionally and kind of outside of the box, maybe from some of the messages that you've already posted, and do it so that you feel like you've got a really good chance at having something out there that's pretty valuable. So I'm gonna jump back to this. See me little mini spreadsheets over there. So here's the case study from one of my businesses. So it's called Main Street Food, and it's a food truck concept that is a food partner for a brewery. I did exactly what I'm saying here is, what I encourage clients to do. I did exactly that with somebody who I was going to have do the social media posting for us for this particular business. And so, yes, I'm going to kind of dive into what this has looked like. So we, sort of sat down and just, I don't know, it took us maybe an hour and 15 minutes, and we screen shared together and went over, these different categories of content first, and so who are the different owners of the people in the business, what are appealing or sexy pictures. So, food close-ups, food and beer shots, people enjoying the food truck itself, where it's located, there's nice sunset views. So, kind of all the different kinds of things that are pictures, what are news and updates. So when they come out with new beers, we compare those with a dish and share, what the brewer's suggestion is. Holiday specials that we were doing, anytime we change the menu, we make those, put those things out. So on the timeline for that one, we have like as new beers are released, right? Because that's not something that I know exactly ahead of time or that there's consistency with. Then partners in the community. So this is, really what we're thinking, like what is a broader scope of people that we touch there. And so talked about different farmers that we purchased from, sharing their stories, our other partner business, what they're doing, if there are different sporting events that are happening that they're showing on the TVs in the brewery. So what are suggestions of dishes that we think are great to eat with, while you're watching the Super Bowl, like get the nachos, good for sharing, and chewing while you're nervously watching your team, then there are community events that often happen at the brewery. So connecting with the people who are hosting those events and saying, what's your favorite dish? And then sharing that. So, hey, come in tonight and support this organization who's hosting a bingo night. The organizers love our, chicken burrito, whatever it is. So really, thinking of what are different ways that we can promote that, other organizations, while also drawing a link between their business and our brand. So information and advice from the expert, really kind of had fun with this one. What are, how different ways to pronounce some of our food, because it's some of the names of the dishes are things that people haven't heard before. And then all these sort of question and answer posts. Guess what so-and-so's favorite dishes? Polls, like do you prefer this dish or that dish? Really kind of encourages engagement, with those ones. And then whenever we do different catered events, so kind of posting about that as well for different specials that are going on. So we went through and chose, how frequent we wanted to do each of those in the, in their boxes for columns B and C, in the gray, and then went over here. Let me make this a little bigger. And planned out what exactly we were going to do for that one whole month. And so, you'll see here that we've got stuff 3 days a week, for the whole month, which is definitely more than I had even been doing before that. So again, for me as the business owner, I felt really confident after creating this with this other person, saying, she's going to post this. This is great. Like, I feel really good about what she's going to be sharing about, because we worked on this together. And I was teaching her, what is like all of the elements of what our brand is. So it, yeah, and then, obviously there's it can be a training process where you say, okay, share your pictures with me first, just to make sure, I like the angle of them or whatever, share the words with me, where you can go in and adjust stuff or tweak things as you want to. But yeah, it worked really, it worked really well. So yeah, so here's my kind of time assessment on the whole process is that, you know, you can spend about 1 hour a month to intentionally plan your content and messages for the upcoming month. And then another hour or two taking pictures ahead of time. And then once you have all of that stuff scheduled, then it's just, you know, 5 minutes here or there posting the actual messages themselves. And then the benefit, you know, is that you've got sales growth from intentional messaging. Your time can be invested in other areas of the business, which can potentially lead to revenue growth. And then the opportunity to engage or develop another member of your team, which could lead to increased retention for that person, right? Because they've gotten the opportunity to learn more in the business. And whether you pay them, you know, just like a little bit extra per hour as they're doing this, or maybe just, you know, a couple $100s a month to do an additional part of it, you know, you kind of figure out what makes sense for the finances of the business. But going back to those initial common problems that I see with marketing, this really helps to make sure that you're posting enough and consistently. So that first problem. The second problem of how to encourage more engagement, I really think by doing this analysis of your past content and then also making sure that you're posting in different categories of information, and then you go back and you reassess after you've done a month or two of this, and you see now that you've maybe shared a broader range of messages, what has been the response and engagement from those, and then tweak it going forward. Because maybe if people and personalities was something you were only posting about 2 times per month and you were doing the sexy pictures every week, well, maybe you see that people and personalities actually gets you much more interaction than the appealing pictures does. Maybe you want to flip that. Maybe you want to do 1 post every week about the people and personalities and drop down the appealing pictures to just once every other week. So, you know, adjust it based on what you're seeing is, you know, the responses. And I think I've pretty clearly made the case for why this can help you to train somebody else to do this in a way that is careful and intentional about maintaining the integrity of your brand. So yeah, so that's kind of the crux of this. So this is my, and I've seen a couple of questions, so I'll jump into that. But if you, if you all are interested to have this, please feel free to just shoot me an email at that email address, that ann.shadle@uky.edu. Yes, so I will just send it your way, and then we can chat if you've got questions. So I've got one question in here. So Maisie says, could the partners in the community section also include clients, spotlight partnerships projects? If not, where could that live in the spreadsheet? Yeah, so Maisie, I would say, like, I think certainly it could live in the partners and community, or if it was, you know, such an important element that you wanted to be sharing about, I would make it one of its own at the bottom, like that 7 or 8, that's like another whole category of information. Because, you know, the idea with this is like really tailor it to what makes most sense for your brand. So, you know, I was like, I certainly could be missing something in the, you know, in the categories, depending on people's particular types of stories. So, yeah, so I think that could be something that, you know, could really make sense for it to be its own category that you may want to post about on a pretty frequent basis as far as client spotlights. Then I'm looking at Debbie's question here. So she says, I use the Facebook business app to schedule my postings on Facebook and Instagram. Is there a better tool? So I would say, Debbie, I think that this can kind of be a partner to that. I know when you post on there, you know, it pushes it out to the different sites at the same time. Something that I've noticed just with social media stuff is that when you do that, or you post from like a third-party organization that then pushes it all out, like Canva, if you're creating something in Canva, you can like push it from Canva directly onto any of those particular sites. You sometimes get better engagement when you post directly onto the site itself versus through one of those other third-party sites. So the Facebook business app, I think, would be great for Facebook. I would maybe test it out with the Instagram piece, because I know like they're super integrated because of having the same ownership. But test it out and see if, if you're getting like a similar kind of message, if you're getting more interaction to it when you just post it directly on Instagram versus posting it through that Facebook business app. Because that may, it may make a difference and is worth doing the investigation to check into. But I would still probably do the planning on this tool itself and then take that information, and then kind of go over onto Facebook, just because I think making sure that you're not forgetting about those categories and hitting all the different categories that you can be sharing messages about, I think is really valuable. Yes. Okay, awesome. So you're saying you're a nonprofit. Is there anything else I should consider differently? Sometimes I'm trying to sell something for fundraising, but mostly I'm seeking donations. Yeah, so I mean, I think like that the idea of, of including this like good neighbor policy into your messaging is going to be really important, because as you're like asking people for things, you want to make sure that you're also, like putting like giving something into the sort of social media community, right? So so like I think that'll be important. So as you think of that sort of partners in community, make sure that you're really like promoting other folks. But then, I mean, you can be telling stories about who the owners of the nonprofit are, or what was the kind of initial inspiration behind the start of the organization, and then use that to to really to share an emotional story. And then at the bottom, like if you appreciate this, feel free to support. This is where the information is. That kind of like two-part message, I think is really valuable. The category as far as the defining yourself as the expert and sharing those helpful tips. This is something that I really have seen a bunch of work done, particularly on Instagram, in a way that I think is really effective. Is that there are people that offer a service, whether it's more of like a counseling kind of service or coaching service, or some sort of like class, and they're sharing this information, this content, that's like, think about this element of yourself. If you feel like you need help with this, sign up for my class, sign up for the coaching, sign up for these counseling sessions. But they're, it's like they're giving a lot of free advice. But then at the bottom of every post is sign up for my class, reach out to me for one-on-one counseling. That you're pairing the information sharing with also the action step. Again, because the idea with this is like be intentional with the messages so that you make sales. So really, continuing to do that analysis of what is working, I think is just as important as making the planning ahead of time. I should even sort of put that at maybe I'll add another slide at the end of it that's like look back on the last month and write again what posts received the most engagement from the audience, because this is a game that is continuously moving, right? The world of social media is is constantly changing, and it's really a question of the audience that is attracted to one particular platform. Is that the same audience as your customers? And so making sure that you're not missing any of those particular platforms as you're doing this analysis. It's something that you do have to spend time on in order to stay relevant in this game. And so that's why I think the idea of bringing other folks into it to help you is worth it, because it's, you do need to devote some time to it. And again, as a small business owner, you're wearing a whole bunch of hats. And so paying attention and analyzing, everybody else's competitive brands out there is hard, and knowing what all the platforms are and how to make videos that are relevant on TikTok and what's relevant on Snapchat, and how do you turn those posts into sales. There's a lot that it takes to do this. So I think it's really valuable if you can find somebody who can help you with this, who may even be better at using this, right? It's like teach them what your brand is, and then set them free to go and be really kind of diving into what this is like, to be putting this message that I think is excellent. So Yeah, so what other questions or thoughts does anyone have here? Please feel free just to drop it in the chat, or even yeah, just you can also, like I said, you can shoot me an email, and I'm happy to send you a copy of the planner. My email's wrong on here. It should be a comma. It should be .edu like normal email addresses are. So yeah, so just kind of take a note of that. I do a ton of one-on-one coaching with folks. So, you know, whether it's in that business start phase or in growth or expansion, we meet one-on-one. And I've gone over this with a whole bunch of clients, you know, who are either trying to boost up their sales or are trying to engage a new staff member to come in and help them with this elements of things. So yeah, I mean, I've really seen this be helpful. It, like I said, it was something that I had created for one of my businesses as I brought the first person on, because it had been myself making the messages for so many years. And I just wanted to be sure that it was, you know, it was able to be a similar kind of voice. And I've done this now several times. I've used it with several other people, and I already have some plan to do with another person actually just next week, to kind of go over it, because I think it's a really valuable tool in building that bridge. So I'm trying to think if I've got any other helpful tips and tricks here. I think it's important, particularly like if you've done an action item on this. So come in for this special, come in, sign up for this event, you know, come in and say this word and we give you a discount. Have a tool for capturing those responses if you're able to have that one-on-one interaction with folks. I've done this before where, you know, we had done specials at one of my restaurants, and I would host, and every person that would come in, I would say, how did you hear about these specials that we're doing on Monday nights in the summer? And they would say, oh, I didn't know about it. I heard about it in the newspaper. I saw it on your Facebook page. A friend told me about it. I received your newsletter. And I had created a spreadsheet where I listed all of the different outlets where I had posted that message about those particular dinners. And then after I would see the customer at the table, I would go back to my spreadsheet and I would just put a hashtag next to each different one of those different places that I had posted it. And then that was super helpful information, because after I did that we did these specials for 3 months. After I finished the summer, I was like, okay, I know with, you know, clarity here, I've got numbers to show where it makes sense for me to put my money and energy and relationships, right? Because there was an element of things being posted in the newspaper at the time, and that was actually really effective. And so I was like, those relationships with the local food reporters is a super important connection for me to have. So, you know, I need to make sure that I stay on top of those relationships, because it brings people in. You know, so when you can have a system to follow up and track at the end of what the action item was that you asked the customers to do on the messages, you know, when you can follow up with it afterwards and really have some data behind it, you know, you use that to inform what you do going forward. So yeah, so I think something to really kind of keep in mind. So, okay, so Susan asks, I'm sure a whole class could be devoted to this, but can you give a basic explanation of hashtags? Yeah, this is a whole world, Susan. So, I mean, conceptually, hashtags is putting a category of information, like putting your message into different categories of information. So people you can look up just the hashtag itself on whatever the media outlet is. And then that way somebody's looking for, okay, like let's go back to the t-shirt company example. So if you have, you know, you're posting information about your product, then you would say t-shirts, hashtag locally made, hashtag women's t-shirts, hashtag men's t-shirts, hashtag Louisville t-shirts, you know, whatever the different categories of types of shirts are that you have. And then if somebody's just looking for Louisville t-shirts, then your page would come up if it's a public page, which obviously it would be if you're a business. So the idea is that it helps to attract you to new customers that are not already fans or friends or following your own pages. So it's really valuable, I think, to do the competitive research as you start to put those hashtags together, because and to find examples of other businesses who do have a good following and see what hashtags they're using, because it's the generator of new fans, new friends, new potential customers, right? So it's worth doing some research to see what else are people using as they're posting. So not a real benefit to select the ones that pop up with word prediction. I mean, I think so. Like, the idea with it is that people put a ton of them, so it's almost like you can't really go wrong. Like, I think that's fine to do the ones that come up there, but I would also be intentional about adding some of the other ones. An example of this, I'll give you with one of my businesses, because it's a food business, is, I thought, okay, if I want to be attracting a wider national audience, what are some of those tags that are looking at food on a national level? So like James Beard Foundation, Michelin star, right? Like, so those kinds of things, I started to use those hashtags in my posts, because people who are looking for James Beard, then they kind of pop around to other, James Beard awarded restaurants or whatever. So it's the value in it, is attracting a broader audience. I think that you can also like save a list of all of them that you're trying to encourage that audience to come find you. So you may have some that are specific to the particular post that you put, and then maybe you copy and paste this other whole section of them that you decided are words that can help bring you to a new audience, and then you add that on to the other post specific ones. So I think that taking a little bit of time to do some research with it can be helpful. I mean, I would say with like social media stuff, it just would be really smart to have, your top 3 or 4 accounts that you think are doing the kind of stuff, like selling the kind of product or service that you are, and are doing it better than you, to be following those people, to be seeing how they're growing their customer base, and what hashtags are they putting, what kind of content are they putting, but really just to have that be on your radar as something you're consistently staying on top of, to be following those other accounts. Yes, glad you found that helpful. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your question. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's a whole deep world of hashtags, because it's, I mean, this is where it can be pretty cool, is that if you get into that kind of like that wider audience, this stuff snowballs so fast, right? Because it's like enough people, whatever that enough is, need to see your post really pretty quickly, and then it gets shown on more and more and more people's pages, in a way that is, that's when you get to like the real momentum with it. And it's, it's pretty cool. I'll tell one more story of this. So I have a couple of restaurants, and this was March of 2020, right? So it was just before restaurants had been closed down. We could feel something was brewing, everything was getting pretty crazy there in the middle of the month. And I had put together a little image for like a packaged meal offering, because we were saying, okay, we should encourage people to do carry out, because we don't know what's happening with this coronavirus. And so our graphic designers had reached out to me, because they're friends of ours, and was like, hey, is there anything we can do to help? I know like the world's about to fall apart. And I was like, yeah, can you help me make this image? Here's some pictures and here's the language. So he makes this. I send this thing out on Sunday before the Monday when restaurants were shut down. We normally get, views on Facebook, 1,000, 2,000, maybe, if it's good, and we're getting 50 or 80 or 100 likes, kind of thing. I'm just sort of like middle of the road, not magical, but decent traction on it. So I put this thing out on Sunday night, and and within 5 hours we had 20,000 views, and I can't remember how many shares of this little image. And then by the next day we had 60,000 views of this little package meal offering that we were doing, because my words had been, you need food, we need money. Here's like, hey, I found a solution. Come in and buy these packaged meals for $15 each or whatever it was. And, you know, I mean, the response to it was bananas. And I mean, then we ended up doing just a carryout offering for the first like couple of weeks of COVID. And we were slammed every day because, I mean, of the massive audience that one particular message had gotten. I've never experienced anything like that, but it really made me believe in the magic of social media, of, you know, of sort of, again, looking at this from the sort of like holistic perspective of what are the kind of messages, how do you get enough of a following, how do you build a community on social media, of, you know, of helping other people, not just posting selfishly about yourself, but, you know, but helping other folks, because then you never know what the moment is that they can turn around and help you. So it was, yeah, it was pretty cool, and it really sort of wowed me with the power of what these platforms can do. So they can be nebulous and kind of hard to figure out, particularly, and I include myself in this, for the older generations, as you know, so much has changed so fast, and it continues to. You know, I think that, again, kind of breaking this down into just sort of like manageable chunks of being intentional with the planning, and then making sure to do the analysis before and after, can really make it so that you can, you know, take some steps forward in getting a larger following, and then turning those into sales. So, yeah, so again, I'll kind of reiterate, please reach out to me if you'd like me to send a copy of that message, or of this tool. I'm happy to meet one-on-one if you're thinking of growing your business or thinking of starting a business, also help in those particular areas. And then a note about this particular webinar is that once you finish watching it, when you close the browser, it will send you a survey. So if you all are interested and wouldn't mind to fill that out, that would be awesome. Just kind of share your thoughts about the presentation today. But I appreciate you all spending your Tuesday lunch break here with me. I hope you found this helpful and got some, you know, even if it's just an idea or two of different kinds of messages to share. I hope you can find ways to implement this into your business and encourage a growth of sales. So, so thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.